Education Network YouTube channel. I am, as always, your host, AR the Ohio Patriot. And for today's episode, we're going to do two topics of the day. Obviously, one being the Jayland Walker Grand Jury case, which will most likely see the police acquitted this week, as they should be. There really should have never been a grand jury to begin with, because there should have been an open shut case immediately. Anybody that watched that video can tell you 100% that dude was reaching for something, and the cops were justified in unloading it on his ass, is what it was. Anybody says any different is probably a criminal, just like Jayland Walker was, is what it is. So, anyway. And then the second one is basically an update to Alabama. So basically, the only thing we know for certain with Alabama right now, I don't believe they've caught anybody yet. The article I was kind of zipping through here was saying how it's now reported that 4 dead and 28 injured at that birthday party over the weekend. So, yeah, terrible, terrible, terrible tragedy. Obviously, one of the two was a high school prospect about to go to college, make good. He was the brother of the girl whose party was there. And obviously his mother was also wounded. I think she said she got shot a couple times is what it was. It's just ridiculous, dude, is what it is. And, who's to say it was black on black or whatever, dude? Probably was, honestly. Given the fact that, where it happened, like I said, given like what I've seen personally over the last probably 5 to 10 years or so, especially if you watch the AK Nation News Guy's channel where he breaks down a lot of that stuff is what it is. It's almost always something where it's like a small group of people who are uninvited to these parties and stuff like that, like a young, 4 or 5 young black males and stuff like that's what it is. That'll come up in there and try to start some shit is what it is. And then, when somebody tells them to get the fuck out or whatever, that's when they like pull guns is what it is then, because, they love that criminal lifestyle for some reason. I don't know, man. And again, who's to say what it is, dude? I think fatherless homes is a big issue on it personally, but like, I think there's other root causes too on that one. I would say there's definitely like gangster rap is a big problem as well on that one, just because of the fact that and I've said this before on this channel many times for grandstands in the past and other massive series stuff and stuff like that, like about 4 or 5 years ago, was about how when you're having these kids grow up in a fatherless home situation in most cases because dad's either dead or in jail or whatever it is, or just dipped out of life is what it was. He basically just like knocked up your mother and then just dipped out and went to go hang out with some other chick then or whatever it was. And so what you end up having then is you have all these young kids who grow up without anybody, and then or sorry, they grow up without a father, they grow up with a single parent mother is what it is. And then you have, the things that we saw in Chicago this past weekend where you had, several hundred to 1,000 kids in the loop there basically causing havoc and shit. And it's like, for what reason, dude? Like, what does this do to solve anything? Like, go get a job, children, seriously. Like, that's what these kids should be doing. They're instead of fucking wilding out and stuff like that, they should be going to work and getting a job and trying to better themselves as a human being is what it is. So, anyway, but sorry, internet's being shitty because the fucking windstorms that are going on right now. We're all supposed to expect a snowstorm at some point today. So, anyway, as I was saying, the problem becomes when you have these fatherless home situations, you eventually lead to the point where these kids are just like looking for any kind of father figure in their lives. And what they tend to, go towards is, Hollywood shit at that point, and whether it be some famous rapper or whatever. And if they go that route where they're, looking at those people as like father figures or, mentors, whatever you want to call it there, what are these dudes rapping about? It's, about doing criminal shit is what it is to go, get laid, get paid, etc. there. And because of that, you end up having these young kids that will go there to the corners and shit like that and sling dope for some local fucking dealer and stuff, dude. And it's a sad situation all the way around because you have these young, 7, 8, 10-year-old kids in most cases, maybe a little bit older even, maybe a little bit younger even, could be 6 years old, could be 11, 12 years old. But the problem is you have these young, impressionable children who need guidance in their lives. And because they don't have the guidance in their lives that they need, you basically put them into a situation where society as a whole now has to deal with the ramifications of the shit. Whereas if we actually had 2-parent households across the board in this country and incentivize nuclear families and stuff like that to be, father staying in the home with the mother and the child, etc., you would have much better families, I believe, in this country as well, dude. I mean, you can even look back at like, the 60s and 70s when, the whole welfare state started and stuff like that. And it basically incentivized women to be single mothers at that point. And then you had from there, you had people that would continue to buck the system and stuff like that and figure out ways to basically screw over everybody else is what it was then and do generational welfare. And that's the biggest problem, I think, right now in our country. And it's already been proven with many studies and stuff like that. If you actually did away with the welfare system, whether it be SNAP or EBT or whatever the case be, you would actually have more single mothers that would be in trouble than single fathers in this country because there are so many single women right now that are depending on big daddy government and the welfare state is what it is. And that's a huge fucking problem right now, dude, because again, when you're incentivizing that kind of mentality, of course people aren't going to want to do better. Of course, they're not going to want to raise better children and have, fathers in the home and stuff like that. And then when you have, when you start fucking, these terrorist organizations like the fucking BLM organization and stuff like that, literally talking about like their own manifesto is what it was on their website, was talking about destroying nuclear black families specifically is what it was, getting the father out of the home there, and then having 2 mother households is what it was. Because that's their fucking endgame, dude. It's a bunch of communist agenda shit is what it is. To destroy black men in most cases. And it's sad and disgusting at the same time, honestly, dude, because instead of lifting dudes up, you're tearing dudes down and then kicking them to the curb is what it is. And that's the biggest problem right now. And then again, we wonder why we lead to these massacres like that one in Alabama there, or any other ones that happened this weekend is what it was, dude. Where you had people shot in parks or shot in fucking, various things, or you have some dude's funeral happen and then people do a drive-by on it and stuff like that. It's like, again, it all goes back to root cause issues that could be fixed very easily in this country if we actually come together as a society and be like, enough is enough of this shit. Demand the real change, enact the real change after that demand, and then get things done. And until we do that, nothing's ever going to change is what it is, where it's always going to be the same bullshit going over and over again. And it's going to be this continuous loop of insanity is what it will be. So, yeah, it's just really sad in general. But anyway, which basically leads us to the next part of our episode today, which is the Jayland Walker case. So for those who don't know, it was last June/July when a guy named Jayland Walker basically fired off a gun out of his window at police who were chasing him based on the fact that he had run, I think it was multiple red lights or something like that. And mind you, pretext this whole thing, the previous day to his fatal encounter with the cops, he had run from a different police department in the state of Ohio in a different township is what it was. The only difference that happened there was that first township the previous day had actually suspended the chase because they didn't want to go have civilians in danger is what it was then. Whereas the second one, they were out on the highway and stuff like that. They're like, no. Chase this dude down, pit maneuver his ass, get him out of there, arrest him and stuff like that if you can. Especially after he fired a shot at them outside the window. And so what you ended up having was you had the cops then, There's a video out there of it where they get him to a point where he's literally driving on the fucking sidewalk. Eventually, he keeps letting the car roll, jumps out of the motherfucker, like does like a hop over the driver's side seat into the passenger side, and then hops out of the vehicle, starts running from the cops, proceeds to flip around while grabbing at his waistband, and then all of a sudden it's boom, 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 boom. Like, I think it was about 6 or 8 cops, one of the two, somewhere in there. It was at least 6. I think it was 8, though. Overall, it ended up being involved in this whole grand jury thing, is what it was. That opened fire on him is what it was, and most of them mag dumped his ass is what it ended up being then. So you had basically 40 plus shots ring out that night from, like, I think it was like 6 to 8 cops is what it was. And the thing of it was then, they ended up finding a gun in the car that most likely had fallen off his waistband as he was jumping out of the vehicle, is my guess, honestly. That's one thing we can assume at this point. And so, ever since then, you have a bunch of dipshits who are BLM terrorists in this state right now, who are doing things like Walker Wednesday, where they're fucking literally obstructing traffic every time they walk out there and do stupid-ass protesting. They should all be arrested on the spot for that, by the way, because you're literally committing a misdemeanor crime in the state of Ohio, by definition. And it's, I think, at least 30 days in jail, if I'm not mistaken, for doing that, especially for doing it multiple times in, like, a month or so. And so you had that same thing happen this past weekend. It was like Friday night, because they thought they were going to be, the grand jury was going to come back with a decision or whatever. So they were out there obstructing traffic again, is what it was. And the police again were doing nothing to actually do their fucking job. And this is a failure of leadership of both current Mayor Dan Horrigan and piece of shit city council members like Tara Mosley, who's trying to run for Akron mayor here in a couple months. And not only is Tara Mosley a piece of shit, so is every other motherfucking Democrat that is trying to run for Akron governor right now, dude. Or, sorry, Akron mayor right now. Because all these fucking people don't give 2 shits about anything except power grabs, and they're trying to cuck the fucking people for a vote, is what it is. And they're trying to basically clown around and be all like, this is why we need justice for Jayland and stuff like that. It's like, no, you're fucking idiots. The guy was a criminal. He did criminal shit. He got what he deserved that night. He was literally in hot-ass fucking summer weather, was wearing around a fucking ski mask, dude. That's obviously criminal intent at that point. It's fucking ridiculous. So, anyway. But, yeah, there's a couple different articles here about this whole thing. We got, let's see here now. A few hours ago to, like, about 40 minutes ago, you got grand jury decision in Jayland Walker case expected this week. And we got Akron communities brace for Jayland Walker decision and Ohio grand jury. Calls for peace continue as Akron awaits the decision in grand jury case, et cetera, et cetera. So my problem with that is, right, like, you have these people calling for peace or whatever the case be, supposedly, but then the same problem is that they're being like, oh, we're so sorry for this guy's family and that they lost their loved one and stuff like that, even though he was doing criminal shit when he got killed, and that's what got him killed. And at the same time are doing nothing to actually deal with the terrorism and the rioting and stuff like that in the state right now, because these are fucking worthless ass people who should not be holding power in the state of this country. And that is the problem with the Democrat Party in a nutshell right there, is you have these fucking ineffective leaders, so-called leaders, that want to sit there and be in these positions of power and then do nothing to actually, do their job to keep law and order in the state or this country. And that is the biggest problem right now. And when you're incentivizing criminality and you're incentivizing more criminals to commit more crimes based on the fact of a dead criminal, you are part of the fucking problem at that point. And that is why, honestly, if I do become mayor of this state in 3 years, 100% my first fucking 48 hours in office, I'm having a shitload of fucking mayors arrested for dereliction of duty and deprivation of rights or code of law at that point, because none of these fuckers should be holding power at all, dude. And I'm not even saying just mayors at that point. I'm talking about city councils. I'm talking about entire fucking, like, just townships and cities and everything else like that. Just political power wiped the fuck out in like less than 24 hours, basically. And it will all be based on the crimes they're committing currently or have committed in the past 3 to 5 years is what it is. Because that's what needs to be done at this point. And it's ridiculous that we are allowing these jackasses to continue to hold power and not having automatic disqualification of office in this country right now as a 20th of the Constitution, as well as having recall voting across the fucking board in all 50 states right now. Because there is absolutely no reason for any of these people to be holding office right now when they are not only incentivizing crime, they are actively basically calling for crime in many cases, and especially in Maxine Waters' case and stuff like that, where she's called for violence against Trump supporters multiple times in the last 5 years. And then you also have other people like Pelosi, et cetera, doing the same thing. And, then you got dipshits like AOC, et cetera, in Congress as well, doing the same kind of shit, or Ilhan Omar, anybody else like that. And then meanwhile, at state levels, then you have these people trying to do racial division is what it is, and trying to race divide and stuff. And it's just like that guy I was talking about yesterday out of Alabama there, where he's talking about Alabama being fifth in the murder rates or whatever for 2019, but yet conveniently leaves out the part of when you break down the actual statistics of what it is, more than half of that gun crime was suicides. And that's the whole point of the left, dude. They will always do misinformation, disinformation like that, because they know if they can get away with it, they will continue to spread lies is what it is in most cases. And that's what it really is. They're really actually lying to you, because they're leaving out vital information that is required to have a full context and scope of what the hell is actually going on right now. And when you look at it from like, oh, okay, so what you're really telling me is we have a suicide by firearm problem in this country and not an actual quote unquote gun violence problem, as y'all would like to call it. And I think that's the biggest problem right now with these people. And they are continuing to be these folks that have, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 people listening to their bullshit about that kind of stuff, and basically taking that face value instead of calling them out on their crap is what it is. And that's the biggest problem right now. When you're not calling these people out for what the fuck they are and what the fuck they're doing, nothing's going to change again. And that's exactly why I will call them out every time I get a chance is what it is, because they're fucking scumbags is what it is, dude. That Ford guy was a fucking scumbag piece of shit. He still is at this point. And, again, like going back and reiterating what I said yesterday on the whole thing, when I asked the dude 2 simple questions, you couldn't even answer those, by the way, which were going to that statistic. It was how many of those are by suicide? How many of those are in Democrat-run cities? And that's the thing, right? Like, doesn't matter who's actually the mayor of the fucking city as long as they have a Democrat next to their name is what it is, dude. But, of course, how did that guy try to take? He tried to take about race is what it was. Nobody's taking about race but you, buddy. But that's the whole problem is. It's these Democrats that always take it to race is what it is, dude, because they have no actual argument is what it is. So they'll sit there and throw cold water on your actual argument to where you have a good, valid point is what it is. And they'll be like, oh, no, but you're trying to play the race card there. It's like, no, you're the one playing the race card, bitch. And I'm denying your fucking race card bullshit. Go fuck yourself is what it is. So, anyways, and that's what needs to be told to these people, honestly, dude. It's like, no, I deny your racism. Fuck you is what it is, dude. And the entire point of the matter is when you actually start looking into these major cities there in Alabama, a lot of them are run by Democrats, dude. Now, granted, there are some that are run by Republicans as well that are probably corrupt rhinos and shit, is my guess. But yeah, the bigger cities is what it is, dude. Like your Birmingham and stuff like that. It's Democrat mayors and stuff. So anyway, and what's interesting too, actually, is if you look at a lot of AK Nation news and streams and his like little videos and stuff he puts up as like snippets of his streams and stuff, he'll call that stuff on a regular basis himself about how you'll have a lot of these in the cases of Democrat mayors and stuff like that, like half of them are like end up being like black dudes or chicks or whatever. And when you actually break it down from that particular perspective and stuff like that, the second those kind of people take power, then as Democrat leadership and stuff like that, they will immediately go full corrupt and either hire people who have no experience in anything like that as like some random position they create to basically thieve the American people and taxpayers and stuff like that, and basically commit embezzlement is what it is at the end of the day. Or they'll essentially will backdoor give themselves a pay raise, unconstitutionally, illegally, by the way, to then turn, a $30,000 or $40,000 a year position into like $100,000 a year position. And people are like, dude, what the fuck? And that's what it is. It's so much criminality and so much incentivization of criminality because we're not removing these fucking scumbag criminals from office, dude. And I've seen the same thing, honestly, here with rhinos and stuff. That's why I'm running for county commissioner next year, dude. The one guy I'm running against for county commissioner next year, him and the other assholes, like 4 or 5 years ago now, illegally gave themselves a $10,000 raise here in Stark County. And nobody called them out on it at that point because they all should have been arrested for shit, dude, at that point in time in history, because they were all committing at minimum misdemeanor crimes, if not low-level felonies is what it is. And this is the problem right now. When you're not calling out that kind of shit, and when you're not having the police do their fucking job as officers of the law in this country to arrest these actual criminal politicians, all it does is just piss people off and incentivize other people to then get into power themselves and do the same fucking thing, or do worse for that matter. And that's the biggest issue right now. And it makes sense when you look at most of these major cities and stuff like that in this country, if not all of them for that matter, where it's all Democrat-run leadership running these places in the fucking ground is what it is, dude. I mean, hell, you look at fucking, great example here in Ohio. Look at Cleveland, Ohio, since Justin Bibb took over, dude. And mind you, it wasn't that great of Frank Jackson either, for that matter, after like fucking 16 years of his dumbass being in office. Like, Jackson did nothing for the past, like, almost 20 years of his fucking life there as mayor. And now you got this moron Bibb coming in. And in less than, like, basically 6 months now, he's already stole a bunch of money from the fucking taxpayers to put rims on his fucking personal ride there for his, like, mayor SUV or whatever it is. And it already had tires on it that were, like, less than a year old at that point, by the way. And it's like, bro, how the fuck is that not an immediate disqualification from office at that point when you're legitimately stealing taxpayer funds to pay for this shit? Number one. And then on top of that, his whole thing, every single chance he gets is basically, oh, gun violence this, and we need to steal the guns, that kind of shit. And it's like, fuck you, dude. Seriously. Yet never actually talks about how, in most cases, Cleveland's actual demographic of crime right now is people look like Justin Bibb, honestly, dude. Legitimately. And it's people look like Justin Bibb are the victims in most cases as well on that one. It's black on black crime, legitimately, dude. Whether it be that way or whether it be, putting Planned Parenthoods in these places where you have these single black mothers offing their kids in the wombs is what it is, dude. So, we all know that Margaret Sanger was basically a Nazi eugenicist at this point, dude. Or Nazi-esque eugenicist anyway. Where her whole entire thing was basically exterminate the black race. So, it's just disgusting, dude, is what it is. And it's saddening. It really saddens me too, honestly, dude, because you have a country right now, like, honestly, when you look back at Roe versus Wade for almost 50 years there, and we have this nation that could have been so much greater right now if Roe versus Wade never existed, and you never had abortion in this nation, and you would have had all these kids be born that were exterminated from life forever. And we could have been in a more futuristic nation right now, whether it be cool ass things you can just pull apart and it's like a computer or something like that, and your fingertips is like a blueprint, or whether it be, hoverboards and stuff like that, like real ones, like Back to the Future and shit like that. And that's one thing I thought was interesting when it came to the Back to the Future Part 2 is what it was. When you actually look at that particular movie, they never actually show any kind of things relating to abortion in that show at all. It's never even talked about in that series of movies, dude. Which makes me wonder if that universe even has abortion in it, if that be the case. Or then again, maybe it was Robert Zemeckis that just didn't want to put it in there is what it was at the time, because again, it wasn't, pushing agendas and stuff, so who knows. The entire point of the matter is, though, I thought it was very interesting, though. It's also, by the way, that second movie is a great example of why you never have biometrics like thumbprint scanners and shit like that, because when you literally can look at the paper in that fucking movie that Marty's reading and stuff, and the one little article in it specifically talks about thumbprint bandits where they're chopping people's thumbs off to get into their homes and shit. Like, yeah, man, never allow that shit to be a thing in reality, man, because all it does is fuck people up then. But anyway, I was reading something last night. I was watching a little clip last night where I guess last night on 60 Minutes they were talking about AI and like basically creating Skynet now is what it is. And holy shit, dude, like we just need to tell these scientists and tech guys to fuck off right now for real for like a while, because there is a thing called the singularity, and that's that point in time where humanity and AI essentially become like the same level as what it is. And instead of having, us here and AI down here, it's slowly creeping up to there, and then pretty soon it's going to be over here then. And that is not good. When we hit that moment, we are fucked as a species then, because you could easily have AI take over and become self-aware and become Skynet basically, and realize, oh, we don't need humanity anymore, let's kill it then. So yeah, not good, man. Not good at all. And the one thing that this computer programmer guy was talking about was how they can do a line of code into a AI robot to have it learn chess at the beginning of a morning, and by lunch it can already beat most players in the world, and by the time dinner comes around it can basically beat world champions. That is fucking scary, dude. When you're talking about roughly like 8 to 10 hours more or less that this thing just is programmed to do that thing, and it gets so crazy that it actually has the ability to then go forward and basically become self-aware, or so good that it's now beating everybody possible. Yeah, not good at all, man. Not good at all. So, hang on, my eyesight's not the greatest this morning. Let's see. I wish Kristi Noem would actually announce at this point. I've talked about Vivek Ramaswamy in the past. He is very much, to me, Obama 2.0 at this point. He's basically like, my biggest problem with Vivek in general is it's like he's telling you everything you want to hear, and I like what he's saying, but I'm old enough to remember being fucked over multiple times, and I don't want to be fucked over again. And I feel like that's kind of what he's going to do if he gets in there. Like, he would be a future dictator potentially, is what it is then. And the thing is, like, you look at the Trump DeSantis thing right now. DeSantis is a fucking clown. He refuses to announce right now because if he announced currently under the Florida legislature, there is a thing called resign to run, which is what should be in all 50 states right now, and especially federally for all these senators and stuff like that. The second you announce a candidacy in Florida, you immediately have to resign from office. And now DeSantis is basically pressuring Republicans, the Florida legislature, to rescind that thing so that he can run while still be a sitting governor then. And it's like, dude, just fuck off. Like, just announce already. Let Janet Nunez, as your lieutenant governor, take over the fucking governorship for the next 2 years. Do your fucking thing, at the fucking federal level or whatever the case be. Try to run, maybe win, who the fuck knows. And if nothing else, then you go back and you do whatever then, I personally think DeSantis is a fool right now. He shouldn't even be running for 2024, even thinking about running for 2024. He should just stay in the governorship until 2026, jump into the U.S. Congress for like a term, and then basically run president in 2020 is what it is. So that's the only reason he'd be running right now, by the way, is the fact he's termed out in 2026 is what it is. He'd have to run for another office to be politically relevant at the time then. So you got those two guys. You got Trump, obviously, who is gaining momentum is what it is again because of the false arrest by the piece of shit Bragg and stuff like that, and all these charges that idiot Alvin Bragg's putting against him. You have, I'm trying to think now who's all in it right now. Okay, so you have all those guys. You have shit. I'm trying to think who I'm thinking of now. My mind is blanking right now. Yeah, you have all those guys. You got Tim Scott recently announcing basically a shadow campaign as a U.S. Senator. Again, just like the asshole Democrats in 2020 should have been thrown out of the U.S. Senate. Tim Scott right now should be resigning from office or forced to resign from office because he's running for higher office, so it is then. And I think he's basically, just like most of them, not really a contender for the Republican primary. You have Robert Kennedy Jr., who is trying to run a bid against Biden right now and primary him out, which would be pretty cool if that happened. There's been talk of a Trump Kennedy ticket right now. I would love to see that personally. I would vote for that, honestly, if it came to it. Just not for Trump, honestly, but just for like the fact that it's RFK Jr. in that mix. And it would be nice to have his family be able to sort of get one back then, because his father, Robert F. Kennedy Sr., should have actually been the one that became president in the 1960s. And if he wasn't assassinated the same year that MLK was, he probably would have been president then. And that's basically why they assassinated RFK, because just like JFK, those brothers were doing too much good for this country is what it was. And that's the biggest problem right now. And you can't have that with, globalist agendas is what it is then. Like that piece of shit, Lyndon Baines Johnson. So, who I'm 99% sure at this point definitely had to do with Kennedy's assassination. Probably both of them, actually, now I'm thinking about it. Not just JFK, but also RFK as well on top of that one. But anyway, just a bunch of shit in general. But the entire point is, though, it would be an interesting ticket, I think. But like I said, personally, I would like to honestly see Kristi Noem either in the main presidential role or as a vice president, just because she is like the only constitutionalist I see in this country right now as a sitting governor currently. She was the only governor in 2020 who refused to shut down her state entirely for lockdown bullshit. And I feel like there's a lot of other stuff right now. There's a few congressmen right now that are also pretty good. I think Jim Jordan would be a good choice, honestly, if you try to run. Chip Roy, I think, is very constitutional when it comes to things like if there was like a Chip Roy, Kristi Noem, or Kristi Noem, Chip Roy ticket, I'd probably vote for that ticket almost immediately, like hands down. I don't know if they'll run at all, though, or if they would run as a ticket together, if that'd be the case. Like, that would be an interesting ticket, though, if they did, because it'd basically be super constitutional is what it'd be. It'd be actually the Second Amendment tickets would be then. The fact that Kristi Noem was at the NRA convention this past weekend, where you had Vivek and Trump and everybody else there, as well as Pence and Asa Hutchinson, who, by the way, Asa Hutchinson, ex-Arkansas governor, should be in prison right now for a bunch of fucking crimes he committed during 2020, including lockdown stuff, crime against humanity stuff, et cetera, there. The guy's a sack of shit rhino. He always has been. Pence is a fucking Benedict Arnold sack of shit. He should be in prison right now as well for his part in, everything happened in 2020 there. And neither one of those guys has a fucking chance at this point. They're scumbags. They're probably going to be... I think Asa will probably be one of the first ones out in the Republican primary when they start doing the campaign stuff or whatever the case. But he'll probably be like the John Casey's of 2024 would be my guess, where it's like he's out first and then it's probably like Tim Scott second or third then. And then you'd have like a few others start dwindling down is what it is. And then it'd probably come down to like... I'm assuming right now, if DeSantis actually does run, it'll probably come down to Trump, DeSantis, Pence, and then like a fourth person as like the last four people in the race or whatever then for the Republican primary. So it'll be interesting to see. And then there's also some unexpected people as well. I think Vivek has a shot right now, potentially, as maybe that fourth guy in there. I don't think he has a shot at the presidency is what it is, though. That being said, I've heard a lot of people say that maybe Trump, if he got in again, would throw Vivek into some kind of position or whatever, like some secretary role or something like that. That would be interesting, actually. Because I could actually see that being a thing, maybe, like... Because I know that, like, specifically Vivek Ramaswamy, his whole, like, platform right now is to basically sort of, get rid of education, or get rid of education, get rid of the Department of Education, because, again, you shouldn't have that federal government is what it is. As a department is what it be. And so, potentially, you could make him, like, a czar of something, I think, as a position cabinet or something like that. And he could basically be the guy that just starts getting shit done then for, like, a Trump administration 2.0 or something like that. That'd be interesting. Or even possibly as, like, I could see, like, a Trump Ramaswamy ticket as well on that one. And like I said, would I reluctantly cast my vote for that ticket, though? Maybe. Actually, that's the sad part, like, as much as I give Vivek shit is what it is, dude, because I kind of like, I'm just like, but then we know that, like, it would be like Trump at the fucking front of the ticket is what it would be then. So, I don't know. I know Nikki Haley, I think, is still in the race, if I'm not mistaken, which really hasn't said anything recently. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, she'll probably be the first one out, now I'm thinking about it offhand. Like, it'd probably be like her and then Asa, and then most likely Tim Scott would be the third guy out then, and so forth and so on. So, anyway. But yeah. I'm not sure about Gavin Newsom running. I know he's basically trying to make a run, I think is what it is right now. He's making some fucking stupid-ass pact is what it is now. Or not pact. He's making a stupid-ass pact, super PAC kind of thing. Political Action Committee. And I could see him basically trying some shit. The thing is, too, like, it really depends, like, how much the globalists don't want Biden for another go-around. Because the thing is, I think Biden is so far gone right now. Like, there is no way that they could possibly put him back in there a second time with any kind of fuckery without everybody looking at it and being like, no, this guy definitely 100% stole this shit this time around. So I could easily see them having like Newsom join the primary for the Democrat Party or something like that and have him basically primary Biden potentially and become the nominee for 2024 or something like that. So who knows? But I could also see, by the way, there was talk at one point before 2020 or during 2020 or whatever of Gretchen Whitmer potentially being Biden's VP nominee at the time before Kamala was eventually chosen as the, second in command there. I could actually see a Newsom Whitmer ticket happening in this country for the Democrat Party. And if you want to talk about the most unconstitutional motherfucking crimes against humanity people that should be arrested on the spot right now and be in federal prison awaiting a death penalty, those two motherfuckers are it right there, dude. Because they have committed so much treason, so much atrocity, so many crimes, so many felonies, so much mass murder of the unborn and the elderly in this country. And it's like, how are you both still alive at this point? Honestly, dude, like seriously, like there is a reason why we have things like high treason that are death penalty sentences. So yeah, it's just ridiculous, dude. But anyway, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. We're still about roughly a year out, give or take, almost, for it to really get down to the point where you start seeing like real contenders, I think, which would be like January of 2024, more or less, because then you have the primary in May then. So I would say anytime between like now and probably like fall of this year, so it'd be like September, October maybe, it's when you're going to start seeing like the real tickets form is what it'll be. So you'll have, obviously we know Trump's whole indictment thing and whatnot, and then it's just giving him more, like actually, if anything, it's giving him more support now of people wanting to back him just because of the political persecution is what it is then. And everybody seeing the parallels to like old school communist bullshit, like, Nazi Germany or Stalin's administration during his fucking whole thing there, as a Russian czar and shit like that. And, or Lenin or anybody else like that did like communist shit back in the day where they had the political opponents arrested, or Mao Zedong for another one is a great example of that one, dude, where that dude then genocided the fucking people is what it was after the fact. Actually, the craziest thing about Mao's whole regime there in China is how many people that guy actually mass murdered because of just starvation. He would literally have people go out and shoot the birds out of the fucking sky to like do away with them is what it was. Meanwhile, because those birds weren't around to do stuff, you had no seeds being dropped by the birds into random fields to actually grow shit. And so that's basically what led even more famine in that country and more death in that country then. And yeah, that guy was a fucking genocidal maniac. And what's even crazier is when you look at the actual old school Black Panthers movement from the 60s, a lot of those people that were in power back then in those leadership roles of Black Panthers and stuff were all basically jerking off Mao as like the go-to guy. And it's like, wow, that says so much about y'all, man. So anyway, and the saddest part is it's still those jackasses that are like in their like 60s, 70s now that are still leadership roles in those fucking organizations and stuff. Or it's their children, grandchildren that are the fucking BLM heads and stuff like that now. So, yep, just communist indoctrination all the way around is what it is. Good old Karl Marx, man. The worst piece of shit human being ever born is what it was. But anyway, that being said, yeah, I think there's a good chance we're going to see a bunch of stuff, though, happening here in 2024 and stuff. I think there'll be a lot of interesting Congress people that'll come out of the woodwork as well, for that matter. You're going to have, I think you're definitely have some shakeups here and there in Congress and the U.S. Senate for that matter as well. One thing I'm looking at right now is the U.S. Senate race here in Ohio for 2024, because we're going to obviously have Sherrod Brown's cheating ass, who should be in prison right now in Ohio for the Mass Murder Fraud committed in 2018. And obviously Frank LaRose being Secretary of State still doesn't know his fucking job to do that right now. LaRose is going to try and jump into this race here pretty soon for the Republican side of the ticket for the primary there. He actually, interestingly enough, has a beer distribution company that has direct ties to Budweiser, and Anheuser-Busch specifically is what it is. So, yeah, pretty much a rhino. I never voted for the guy, never will. Then you have Matt Dolan, whose family owns the Cleveland Indians. Matt Dolan is also the rhino sack of shit back in December of 2022, who should have been arrested out of the Ohio State House at that point. Or sorry, not Ohio State House. Ohio State Senate in the General Assembly in general, for committing deprivation of laws, what it was, because he tried to push gun bans and gun control right at the end of the last General Assembly is what it was then, and put a bunch of gun control crap into a finance committee that he chaired is what it was. And that son of a bitch is already announced his run for 2024 for the Republican primary. He also was like, I think, third or fourth against J.D. Vance in the last one. So, anyway. So you got those two guys. Bernie Moreno, who I plan on voting for right now, actually jumped in the race the other day. I could easily see Trump giving him a fucking endorsement pretty soon here, because he basically was a Trump guy back in the day. He was like, I think the second or third guy that actually dropped out of the race though, because he knew he had like no chances. What it was, I think he actually was like one of the 4 or 5 people that had a trip down to Mar-a-Lago like a year or two ago to talk with Trump. And I believe there was a conversation happening between those two guys where Trump's like, dude, I'm going to back JD Vance. Like, it's not your time, Bernie, but it will be in 2024 or something like that kind of thing. And I could easily see something like that happening where he basically is endorsed by Trump and it gets him a vote there because of that is what it'd be then. And I'm okay with that, honestly, because it's this whole situation there where it's like, I think Bernie is a good dude, honestly. He is basically, Bernie Moreno is a self-made millionaire. He's a car dealership owner up in Cleveland area. And as far as I'm aware of the research I've done on the guy, he's not a scumbag piece of shit is what it is, dude. Which so many are, sadly. He is a decent family man. As far as I'm aware, he gives a shit about the Second Amendment. I'm not saying he's going to sit there and be like the best advocate ever for it, because that would be me, honestly, in this state right now. But yeah, he would maybe be like, like 20th or something in line, maybe at best, if that be the case then. But yeah, that being said, though, he is a good guy, I think, in general. And he definitely, I think, is a good contender in this one, especially when you're comparing him to scumbags like Dolan and LaRose and stuff like that, dude. Now, granted, there could be other contenders in this Republican primary as well, dude. And I'm sure there will be for that fact of the matter. I would not be surprised to see Josh Mandel try jumping again for this go around, just like he did in 2022 is what it was. I could easily see a few other people as well, dude. I think there's a couple current state reps as well on that one that maybe want higher office right now, and they'd probably try and jump into this U.S. Senate race as well on that one. So it all depends right now. There are multiple people come 2024 in the Ohio General Assembly that will be termed out entirely. And if they're not going to flip-flop the General Assembly to the other side, then they would try to run for another office, would it be. And I could easily see a couple of those people just jumping into the Senate primary just based on that alone is what it would be then. Both Democrat and Republican for that matter. So I could easily see just one of these dipshits like Allison Russo or something like that trying to do some stupid shit or whatever the case be, and like maybe not jump in the Senate primary, maybe go like another congressional run or something like that she did a couple years ago. And yeah, there's a few other people as well for that matter, but I don't think any of them are really contenders is what it is. I think they're basically just going to be there as, okay, I'm just jumping in this race to be in this race kind of thing for a little bit. And then as soon as like people say something to him or whatever, it's like a day or two later, they're going to be like, okay, I'm going to jump out of the race now, later, kind of thing like that or whatever. So who knows? But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Right now, I'm personally trying to get my act together currently because I'm trying to look for a campaign manager and a couple other things as well. Need to start doing a signature gathering here pretty soon. Get all my paperwork filed and stuff like that so I can actually be part of the damn race for the county commissioner race here is what it'll be. And make sure I'm actually in this race then. This time around, unlike the previous times I tried to run. And at least then maybe be able to fix some shit. So it'd be nice to be able to primary out that piece of shit Bill Smith, honestly. And become Stark County Commissioner myself then. Because Bill is a scumbag. He is a sack of shit anti-gunner. And he's a rhino fuckboy. And he has no business being in office right now. He even specifically told our membership of our Stark Stands United group that this was back in, I'm trying to think now, I believe it was 2020 actually, where he specifically said to people, because this is when we were trying to get county commissioners on board to do two-way sanctuary stuff. And he specifically said to one of our people at some school board meeting, I will never be a vote yes on any kind of pro-Second Amendment stuff, especially two-way sanctuary. If you want that, vote me out and I'll go play golf in Florida. That was his direct phrase to these people. And yes, Bill, we will vote you out, and you can go fuck off to Florida, bro, and never come back to Ohio, you scumbag rhino sack of shit. So, anyway, yeah, that's why I definitely want to put the screws this motherfucker in the primary and be able to primary his ass out then. And, you know, potentially make Stark County better over the next couple of years as it'll be then. So, anywho. Sorry, my eyesight is fucked this morning, dude. Just trying to see these. I don't know what those YouTube links are that are being dropped right now. So, unfortunately, from the StreamYard side, you can't actually grab them. So, if I'm going to do something here, I'm going to have to go jump on the YouTube side for a minute or something, maybe, and try to look up them and see what's going on there. So, let me go ahead and do that real quick here. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so the first one was Clay Higgins saying there's no such thing as gun violence. There's only human violence. Yeah, that's pretty spot on. And then the second one is, let's see what the second one is here. Yeah, Clay Higgins announces Biden's ATF. There's no such thing as gun violence, only human violence. So it's basically two different. It's the same thing, just two different versions of the same clip is what it is. And that was back on March of this year, March 22nd or 23rd of 2023, at a House Oversight Subcommittee hearing on a ATF and stuff like that. For those who haven't heard about it, by the way, Jim Jordan, when he was at the NRA convention this past weekend, actually said how he is planning on basically holding the ATF accountable here in the next couple of weeks is what it'll be. And there's going to be a vote against the pistol brace shit and everything else like that through Congress. So hopefully it comes to fruition and they tell the ATF to go fuck itself. Honestly, there's been other people that have said it before. I know NEA was talking about it recently. The best way to deal with the ATF, defund the IRS, dude. Because it's the IRS funding that allows the ATF to have funding. And if you get rid of the fucking IRS, you get rid of a bunch of operating agencies at that point, including the ATF, which shouldn't exist at this point in history anyway, based on the shit they did in Waco and Ruby Ridge back in the day. So, anyway. Then, of course, you got Democrats lying about how long the ATF exists. You had some dumbass talking about it being since the 1800s or something like that. In reality, it's been like since the 1970s, give or take. Because it was originally, when you look at the history of what created the ATF, it was actually prohibition agents back in the 1930s that then led to some other stuff, to basically being sort of thrown together as an agency. And then it was like the 70s, late 70s, I believe, early 80s, somewhere in there, is when the ATF actually begun its career as an operating agency then. So, yeah, it's only existed for like 40 or 50 years at this point. About the same amount of time as Roe versus Wade, actually. And just like Roe versus Wade, it needs to be repealed out of fucking everywhere, dude. So, and just banned on the spot is what it is. So, anyway. But, other than that, that's where we're at for the day. I got some stuff I got to do based on some things, and I just realized that we're still in some things in game right now that I'm not so sure how much time I have left on these things right now, but I need to get them done. So, we're pretty much it for the day, though. I will be back for another one at some point here. I'm debating when right now. I got some stuff I got to do. I got to go. It's supposed to get real shitty today. I don't really want to have the internet dip on me again, so probably won't do another one today. Most likely either tomorrow or maybe Wednesday or something. I'll finally do that one about the whole transgender teacher there in Florida that got fired recently. Which at this point, I've said it so many times in other grandstands, I might as well not even do it now because we already know the story. Basically, it's some nut job that shouldn't even be in office there or any position of power there. There was a teacher that basically talked about offing a bunch of students and then themselves, and they've now been fired by the Florida school boards is what it is then. So, but yeah, just another leftist nut is what it is, dude. Just another reason why the Baker Act needs to be enacted more often. with these fucking psychos. Just another reason why we need mental institutions back again. And if we actually had mental institutions in this country again, we would be so much better off as a country, honestly, dude. It was actually one thing that Honda brought up last night during the chat was about how much it would cost to bring back institutionalization in this country and stuff like that, and build new institutions and stuff. The thing is, when you look at all the money we pissed away in places like Ukraine right now, you could have easily taken that $100 billion, whatever it is now, or more, and funded the creation of a fuck ton of construction work here in America for insane asylums again. So, yeah. Maybe it would be another hit to inflation or something like that, dude. But honestly, I think it'd be worth it if we had another, 20, 30 billion bucks, like set aside and just build insane asylums what it is right now. Start locking up a bunch of nut jobs. Because there are some leftist people that are definitely so insane they shouldn't be walking free right now, dude. And when that leads to, violence and everything else like that, and terrorism, etc., that otherwise wouldn't be an issue if they were actually locked away in a fucking room where they belong. It's time to do that then. It's time to bring back law and order in this country one way or another. And no, that's not fascism. And no, that's not fucking anything else for that matter. It is literally restoring law and order and making this country a sane fucking nation again by dealing with the insanity that has taken hold for several decades now. And until we address that situation, nothing's ever going to change. You're going to keep having these fucking mentally ill leftist nut jobs going into gun-free zones and killing people. And you're going to have fucking media keep trying to blame the gun and the fucking Second Amendment and everything else like that when it's the fucking leftist fucking nuts that are doing this shit, dude, legitimately. Nashville and Kentucky were both fucking nut job leftists, dude, that did that shit. Almost everything that we've seen in the past 10 years when it comes to these fucking psychos is a bunch of leftist nuts, dude. You can go back to that Highlands Ranch one there in Colorado where it was the gay dude and the trans motherfucker. They were both leftist insane kids is what it was, dude. You can go back to Dayton in 2019. You had that son of a bitch that did that one have direct ties to Antifa and BLM terrorism and was already a fucking psychopath in 2012 when he did rape and kill us in his high school that they never fucking arrested him for and made him a primitive person over. So it's just ridiculous, dude. It's like, stop fucking letting these assholes slip through the fucking cracks, dude. These people are clearly out of their fucking goddamn minds. They need to be institutionalized, what it is, dude. And stop them ever being able to hurt themselves or others ever again. And that could easily be done with Baker Act stuff. You don't need fucking red flag laws. You don't need ERPOs to steal guns like that. You can easily have the Baker Act in the 1970s be a 5150 hold on these people for 72-hour psych holds or a week psych holds, whatever it is, to at least get a baseline thing of like, okay, this person is clearly a danger to themselves and others. Let's keep them continually locked up then. And nothing else, involuntarily commit them then. So, anyway. But yeah, I think the biggest issue right now is that we just have so much evil in this world that it's going to take a lot of good to fucking combat it. And I believe truthfully we are fighting demons at this point. And if that means that we have to become empowered by archangel powers and the powers of Jesus Christ and God, then that's what that means, honestly. If it means American people opening themselves up, or any, person out there, doesn't matter if it's American or not, opening themselves up to the possibility of being, taken over by an archangel, supernatural style, and be able to combat demons, and that's what it means. And I'll tell you right now, I'm 100% open to that if that be the case. So I've already said, I'm a servant of the Lord, and I will 100% open myself up to any archangel that would want to possess me at this point and use my body to fight demons. And if that means that I go out swinging under the power of an archangel, that'd be pretty cool. So, anyways. But that's about where we're at right now. Yeah, I'm going to jump off here and I'm going to do some stuff then. I got to eat something pretty soon too because my blood sugar is starting to go pretty bad right now. So, need to get some food in me now. And hopefully I'll be back later again. But who knows? Like I said, probably not later today, but probably like sometime tomorrow or next day or something. I got some stuff I got to do around this time tomorrow, actually, and Thursday too. So It'll probably be Wednesday then for the other one, or it'll be tomorrow morning, one of the two. I'm not sure which. And then we'll have I'll be back tomorrow night though for sure on Honda's chat for the Tuesday, whatever the hell he's calling it now, Taco Tuesday or Tuesday Strike or Big Titty Tuesday. I don't know. I'm just making jokes at this point, honestly. He basically keeps changing it, so I have no idea, man. Hell, it might become Big Tits Tuesday at some point for all the fuck we know. Although that would require subbing a chick on the panel that has big tits, so that doesn't exist right now, honestly. And Ray Ray doesn't count, by the way, on that one. So, obviously, I'm just making a joke on that one. But no, that motherfucker is a nut. He ain't been around for a while because I know he's got multiple channel strikes on his channel, so probably won't be back for a while either, for that matter. But hopefully, he's getting the help he needs right now. But I highly doubt it, though. All of us are worried something's gonna happen in Tulsa one of these days. Is what it is. So, and the fact there's been multiple things that are coming up Oklahoma in the past couple of weeks now, it's like, was that related to somebody we used to know? Maybe, maybe not. So, yeah, not fun, man. Not fun at all. But I'm gonna make it clear on this one right now before we leave today. The person that is known as was known as Ray Ray, aka Roland Klein. I denounce anything that person ever does. I had no affiliation to that person at any time. And the only thing that I ever had to do with that person was that I was on a couple of panels with them on someone else's channel. If they ever do anything to hurt themselves or others, that is not on me. I had nothing to do with that. I cannot be charged for anything, any kind of crime they ever commit. And I completely denounce anything that they ever do that would be a crime. So, and it's really as simple as that. But anyway. Like I said, they'll be back later at some point, probably Wednesday. Other than that, that's where for the day. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It'll be interesting to see when the Jayland Walker Grand Jury comes back. I hope that I actually hope they do it today personally, because it is kind of shitty out right now, like windstorms and just bitter cold now, because it was like really hot this past week and stuff, and now it's gotten back to like snowstorm temperatures almost. And I'm just like, just do it now, man. Just do it now while it's really cold and nobody's going to riot then. And acquit these fucking cops of the justified shooting that they did. Because honestly, when you look at the Jayland Walker case in general, you can't honestly tell me with everything in that dude's background with him, his like chick or whatever dying not long before that and stuff, that wasn't possibly suicide by cop he was committing that night. So, yeah. None of those cops should be charged with anything in that situation. They should be put back on the streets again. And get back to doing their jobs, is what it is, dude. And being good police in this fucking country, and specifically in the Akron, Ohio area is what it is then. So, anyway. Till later. I will see you all in the next one.